Good morning and welcome to the morning show here on Dickson County Radio. Appreciate everybody tuning in this morning. Today is Saturday, March the 21st, and we're right in the middle of March Madness, as we were just talking about before we went on air here. So hope you guys are enjoying the basketball games. Some really good ones the past couple of days. That Kentucky game yesterday was pretty exciting, so that kind of gives you an idea kind of what's going on today. We've got a beautiful day today, nice weather, so hopefully everybody goes out and enjoys it. For those of you who may be tuning in this morning who don't normally tune in to the Saturday morning show, I just want to first off thank you for tuning in and kind of let you know what we're all about here. So this is a community show based here in Dickson, Tennessee, and we try to bring in candidates, local candidates for office here in Dickson County, and let them talk directly to the public. 2026 is a big election year, and we've got a lot of offices that are open and a lot of candidates that have qualified to run. And so every Saturday morning we try to bring one in and give you the opportunity to hear from them. We've had on state representative candidates, county mayor candidates, county commission candidates, and soon we'll have some school board candidates on as well, and some other offices. And we just appreciate everybody who supports the show. And we've got another great show for you this morning. We've got Ben Shepard is here with us this morning. Ben is running for county mayor, and so let's go ahead and just welcome Ben in. How you doing this morning, Ben Shepard?
Justin, doing great. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you for coming in. I really, truly appreciate you doing this show with me this morning. You're running for county mayor, and I want to get all into that campaign and talk to you a little bit about why you're running and some of your key points of your campaign. But, you know, how we typically start the show off here is just a little bit of get to know you. There are probably some people who are listening who know exactly who you are and may have known you for a long time, and then you've got other people who maybe they don't know who you are, maybe they're new to the area. So let's go ahead and start with, if you don't mind, talking a little bit about yourself. I know sometimes that kind of puts people off, but would you tell us a little bit about yourself? And for somebody who doesn't know who Ben Shepard is, give us maybe a little bit about your background and a little bit about your life up to this point.
Well, thank you again, Justin. Beautiful spring day. We're officially in spring. The weather has turned for us finally. And so March Madness is going on. And so just one of my favorite times of years. And, you know, my background at Dickson, I'm born and raised here. I, of course, spent time outside of Dickson for school, a little bit in Nashville. From when I first got out of college, I worked in Nashville and lived there, but moved back to Dickson in 2014. And so spent most of my life here and most of my adult life here. And just a place that's super special to me, super special to a lot of people in the county. Even more special, you know, lately going through Leadership Dickson course and learning more about it and tying everything together with all the you know, different aspects of the county, the great folks that live and work here. So my parents, Martha and David Shepard, opened a pharmacy here in 1980, and they met in pharmacy school and moved back to Dickson as pharmacists, and then bought their own business in 1980. And I was a few years later in 1984, and grew up here, you know, doing all the sports, all the activities, you know, getting put in all the day camps and everything, and then graduated Dickson County High School in 2003. And in high school, I took on leadership roles as much as possible, ran for student body president, got elected student body president for the 2003 class. And so that, you know, that was an interesting time. We just had 9/11 happen 2 years earlier. And so I remember, you know, vividly going through recognition processes for our veterans and active duty that were part of that, you know, Iraq War and Afghanistan, and recognizing them during my role as student body president there. And went to University of Tennessee, Knoxville for college, studied mechanical engineering. And each time I go to a place, I try to push myself to take on, you know, maybe the harder parts of, and challenge myself with taking on harder coursework, stepping into leadership roles. And at UT, I served in different capacities on honor societies or student bodies, and served as president of Pi Tau Sigma Engineering Society, and served as different leadership roles within my fraternity and other societies. And so that's, you know, leadership has been a part of my life and something I've challenged myself to take on. You know, during my professional career, outside of college. I was an engineering consultant for the last 15 years, mechanical engineer with my professional engineering license, and stepped away from that for just a short time in 2024 to let my wife focus on getting her master's in education administration. And while doing that, I really contemplated, what I wanted to do as far as leadership in Dixon, and applied for the Leadership Dixon course and started that this year. We're wrapping that up in May. And during that course is when I really, thought hard about running for an elected position within the county. And that's, I was looking at a couple different options there. Of course, you've got state representative roles that come up every 2 years. You've got county commission roles that come up every 4 years. And I live in the county and not in a municipality, so one of those roles was going to be what I would have to run for. And then county mayor was the big one, right? So Mayor Rowlett announced his retirement at the beginning of his term in 2022. And it was a very appealing role, and that's one that fits my professional background. It fits my skills and acumen, I think, with the different things they take on. They take on construction projects. They take on, of course, budgeting and finance. They take on, disaster response. And so all these things I felt like I could do well. And so that's when I decided to really consider running for county mayor.
Can I ask you a little bit more about this Leadership Dixon County? Because it's not something I've had the opportunity to do. A few people have mentioned it to me, said, that might be something you'd be real interested in. And I've thought about it in the past. Just due to my schedule, I haven't really had the opportunity to do it. But I'm kind of fascinated by it because everybody that's gone through it that I've talked to has really had good things to say about it. Can you tell us just a little bit about it for maybe somebody who doesn't know? Because it sounds like that's inspired you a little bit, and there may be some people out there who don't know what that is.
Yeah, great question. So It's a course I've been aware of for a long time. It's been around Dixon, I think, since the late 90s. Maybe they had their first class. I talk to people all the time that, they're like, hey, I went through Leadership Dixon back in, 2003 and 4. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe it's been around that long. And so it's run by the Chamber of Commerce. And yes, it's been a course I've wanted to take for years, and my job just wouldn't allow it. I traveled too much and was too busy to be able to commit. But the commitment isn't that much. It's, at least one day a month. Sometimes there's maybe an extra activity day, but it goes throughout basically a school calendar year. So you're talking August to May, and you apply for it in the summer leading up to it. And then they pick a class, usually about, 20 to 25 people, run by the Chamber of Commerce in Dixon. So Jenny Wagner does a great job organizing with other, usually volunteers and other elected officials within the county and leaders within the county that help her with each of the days. And there's just different topical days. So you'll start out with maybe an introductory course where you're getting to know your classmates and doing some team building activities and learning more about yourself. And then they'll step through usually a different subject each month. So it could be History Day, it could be County Government Day, it could be State Government Day, Health Day, Education Day. There's all kinds of awesome specific days that they do each month that enlighten you on the different parts of how the Dixon County operates with regards to those topics.
Yeah, that's really a class that I think that I would really like to do, because I feel like even though I know a lot about Dixon County, and I feel like I do try to stay involved as much as I can, I still feel like, as thorough as that sounds, I still feel like I would learn something new.
Absolutely. I've learned a tremendous amount, and I wish I could go back and repeat some of the days. There was so much information that I'd love to go back and hear a second time.
So let's go ahead and take our first break here, and then when we come back, I want to ask you a little bit about why you decided to run for county mayor. That seems to be, sort of the essential question there that everybody wants to know is, once somebody puts their name out there to run for something, hey, why have you decided to do this? And I feel like that'll be a pretty long answer. So let's go ahead and take our first break here, and we'll come back and we'll dive into the main points of Ben Shepard's campaign. Ben is running for county mayor, and he has been kind enough to join us this morning. Let's go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, we'll ask Ben some more. You're listening. All right, we're back here on Dixon County Radio. You're listening to the Saturday Morning Show, the show that's all about Dixon County. And for 2026, we've sort of dedicated the Saturday Morning Show to interviewing local candidates for office here in Dixon County. In 2026, we've got a lot of offices that are open. We've got a primary election that's right around the corner and a general election a few months later. So a lot happening on the election side of things. And so we're trying to do our best to bring you the information from the candidates directly. And we appreciate you tuning in. If you're sort of new to the show, if you're listening to us, there's a lot of different ways I guess you could be listening to us. Of course, Facebook seems to be the most popular one, so you may be listening to us on a Facebook video this morning. You may be listening to us on Live 365, which is the main way that we broadcast. And if you're not familiar, you just go to on your app there, on your phone, go to the App Store and you download Live 365 and you can look up Dixon County Radio and you can save that as one of your favorites, and then when you go to the app, it'll just pull us right up. We've also got a website, DixonCountyRadio.com, where we put a lot of our content that we have, and you can go there and get a live link to listen to us. And of course, like I said, we've got the streaming link all over Facebook. So we do appreciate you listening to us this morning, however you're listening to us. We've got Mr. Ben Shepard here with us this morning, and Ben's been talking to us this morning about his campaign for county mayor. Ben's running for county mayor, and he's been kind enough to come in here and talk to us a little bit about the campaign. In the first segment, we talked a little bit about his background, and he grew up here in Dixon and went to Dixon County High School and went to the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. He talked to us all about that. And, a lot about leadership Dixon County as well. But now, Ben, now that we're in the second segment here, I do want to ask you a little bit more about the campaign specifically. And, the first question I always like to ask in this segment is, why did you decide to run for this office? And that's kind of, a multifaceted question because, I'm kind of interested in a couple of things. Number one, why did you decide to get into politics? I mean, obviously that seems like might be something natural for you, but I would like to hear, kind of what your inspiration for wanting to do that is. And then also, why specifically county mayor? You kind of touched on it there in the last segment, but why that specific office, and if you want to just kind of talk to us now about that, and just kind of talk to us a little bit why you decided to run for county mayor.
Well, Justin, it's serving in a leadership capacity, running for public office. It's a big step for people. It's you put yourself out there, and most people want to serve, the people that they live in and live around and work around. And, that's the main important thing is I want to serve people. I'm a great listener. And my background with leadership, comes from my parents and Martha and David Shepard. And my dad got involved within the city of Dixon as a city council member and vice mayor from the late 1970s through the late 1980s. I believe that may have been Mayor Dan Buckner back then. And so that was his first step into public office. And I vaguely remember the tail end of that as a very young child growing up in the late 80s. And then he focused more on their business that run in Dixon Apothecary and a couple other community clinics within the county in Hickman County. And then he stepped back, or started stepping back in and looking back into politics in 2000. There was a seat that was open in the 69th district that represented all of Dixon back then. So Doug Jackson was going to run for state senate, and then the state representative seat for the 69th district was opening up and had a lot of interest. And I remember as a 16-year-old kid getting involved in that election and all the work that went into it. And going around, I personally went around, of course, with him throughout the whole county to all kinds of events, down into Hickman County where his district went to the south, and putting up signs and meeting people, shaking hands, going to barbecues, and thought, man, there's so many different people that you run into at these events that you wouldn't meet in your daily life. But when you start getting out to see the different people, different communities out there all over the county, it just really opens you up to how many different things are happening and different people you can serve. And that's something you don't see in your daily life necessarily until you step into public office. So that's leadership background from my parents' standpoint. They instilled that in me, and now that I'm in my 40s now, I've found that the median age in Dixon County, the median age of the residents is 41 to 42 years old.
Really?
And so I thought, wow, that's exactly what I am right now. I feel like I can reach across the different generations. As a millennial, Justin, as you are,
yes,
we are, defined basically as, the generation that tied into, the pre-internet phase, but also, the post-internet phase and social media. And so we grew up in kind of one leg in each of those, phases of the 90s and early 2000s. So I feel like that's a good gap that can be filled by somebody like us. And there's not a lot of young people that serve in county roles. You'll see some people our age serve in city council roles and town council roles. If you look at City of Dixon Council, White Bluff, Burns, you'll see some younger folks, but county commission and mayor is something traditionally you don't see someone in their 30s and 40s run for. And so I thought, why not? We've got if you've got the capacity to do it, and you got the energy to do it, it seems like a great age to get into it and connect people, new families coming in that are in that same age bracket, and also you can relate to older people as well, just, with your parents and things. So I feel like we're suited for it.
You bring up a really interesting point, because I've sort of had this same conversation that right along the same lines with my own kids and with people that are younger than me that I'm around, on a regular basis. I think our generation is sort of unique in that sense that I can remember when the internet didn't exist. Right. And I tell young people that all the time. They look at you, what? You're crazy. It's like, I'm older than Google is another fun one we love to tell the young kids. And they're like, what? But the truth of the matter is we can remember a different world. And I sometimes talk about this. It's like there's like the old world I sometimes talk about to my kids, because there's like this other place, from the late 80s, early 90s, before everything got crazy and everybody had a cell phone in their pocket. And we can remember that world and we can identify with that world, which is why I think we're a good bridge generation, because we can understand, the folks that are a generation above us, because we remember that world that they grew up in, that they really know and relate to. But we also understand the world that our kids lived in, because it was happening while we were growing up. We grew up with the internet. We grew up with this technology. And so even though we can remember a time without it, I think that we also are pretty good at it.
Yep.
And maybe not all of us are, into social media and things like that. But, I believe that, I'm just as good at technology as my kids. And, but I also remember a time before. So I do think that we are that bridge generation. And maybe people won't agree with me on that, but I do think that there is some truth to that. And I think that that's an interesting perspective that you have there.
Yeah, and this radio show is one example, right? So this is content that's, live streaming 24 hours a day, but also, you can digest on YouTube. And of course, you've got your other outlets, the Dixon County Times, that, is kind of a digestible news bites for Dixon County that's outside of the traditional newspaper. So, this is how news is really being digested a lot lately, are in these, social media platforms.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that when I look around, it's like people older than me, that I think they kind of have a hard time understanding what I'm doing here. But people who are younger than me know exactly what we're doing. And we're kind of the pioneers of it in a lot of ways. And I do think that the way that we take in information and that we take in news is definitely changing rapidly, almost month to month. And I'm trying my best to keep up, and it's difficult. But no, I appreciate those thoughts, because that's a very interesting conversation. Now, if you don't mind, I would like to ask you a little bit about your campaign. I appreciate your answers there about why you decided to run. If you are fortunate enough to get in there, you'll have the opportunity to maybe make some changes. Have you thought about what you would do in that particular situation? Maybe now would be a good time to kind of talk about maybe some of those key campaign points, some things that you're trying to make known to the public. Hey guys, if I make it in there, these are some of the things that I'm trying to do.
Yes. So this week we actually had a mayoral candidate forum on St. Patrick's Day, And so they had all 6 candidates. This was another Dixon County Chamber of Commerce event and well-run event. Just really appreciate all the people involved in that. So they gathered questions from chamber members in the weeks leading up to the event. And you could submit questions, and then they would kind of go through and maybe combine some that were very similar. And so originally, they gave us a list of about 36 questions that came in, and they gave it to us about a week before the event took place. So we had some, time to prepare, look it over, get our thoughts together. And then you didn't know exactly which questions they were going to ask you. And I didn't know exactly what format they were going to eventually go with. But the morning of the event, we were told that they've narrowed it down to 6 questions. And so all 6 candidates were on the stage. We're all going to get asked these 6 questions and basically hand the microphone down and each get to respond to it for about a minute and a half to each question. So really challenging. You have to take a question that you could talk about for 30 minutes to an hour and, condense it down to a minute response and try to stand out, amongst your fellow candidates. So great. I thought I did a great job and hopefully got, just some of my points across and just gave people an idea to maybe research further. You can look on my Facebook page and Ben Shepard for Dixon County Mayor and see probably some more information about some of my responses, and I'll post more in the following days now that I've got time. So some of the things they asked us about in the forum were, very topical things related to what a county mayor does, right? So he's helping run several departments within the county. He's also serving as an ex officio member of the county commission, which means he's a non-voting member of the commission. So he's more of an advisory role. And in our particular instance in Dixon, and this is unique to every county. Every county's set up differently with their county commission and mayor. Mayor Ryle has been chosen as the chairman of the commission and the work session. So that gives him the role of setting the agenda and serving as the meeting lead, basically. So he goes through the agenda at the meetings, and the county commission votes on the agenda items and makes decisions like that. So if they were to elect a county commissioner as a chairman, then that county commissioner would be leading the meetings, and Mayor Ryle would be there as an advisory role still. And he's only there, he can break a tie if there's a 6-6 tie. So we have 12 members, which is, usually one odd number, but we've got 12, so he's the tiebreaker on votes, but he's never had to do that in his 16 years.
There was something a couple weeks ago.
There was something they tried to get him, and they only had 10 members present, so they didn't have the full 12-member body. So he, and I guess in that role, he couldn't break the tie.
I thought it was funny though what they were trying to do.
It was funny.
It was cool.
Right on his last year, they were trying to get him to pick a side.
Yeah. Of course, he didn't know.
He did not. He did not. So some questions they asked us at the forum. Let me talk about those.
Yeah.
One of the main questions, we actually had 5 or 6 that were, in one shape, form, or fashion related to county growth. Yeah. And that's a huge one, right?
It's a big one.
So Dixon, if you're from the area and you're familiar with the surrounding counties, we've got sort of a mix of, modes that those counties like to operate in. They know their lane, and Dixon knows, our lane right now and what we want to be. And I feel like we want to be, sort of we're a short commute to Nashville for a lot of people that want those jobs in Nashville, but we want to offer, entertainment, and we want to offer services in the county that are going to keep you here and spend your tax dollars here. If you look at Hickman County to our south, they've got a different agenda, honestly, and they know that. They admit that. My father-in-law is the chairman of the county commission down there, and I've talked to him extensively about this. And they're a bedroom community, so they want to be, a community that has homes, but doesn't necessarily have a lot of business growth, have a lot of industrial growth. They're okay with living in Hickman County, keeping taxes super low, and then having their residents, maybe travel out of county to work. and you have Montgomery County and Williamson County as bordering counties as well to us. So those counties are looking more at high growth. Of course, they've got other factors that are going to stimulate growth, that have stimulated growth in the decades prior. So with Fort Campbell, of course, and then Williamson County being so adjacent to Nashville, it's exploded. But with that, they have a higher tax base. They have a higher property tax per capita, and they have more people than Dixon, and they have a lot more growth. And so that's their challenge right now is managing all that growth. Dixon's got our own growth, but we're right in the median. We're always right in between. So we're never going to be, a super low tax property tax county like Hickman County, but we don't necessarily need to be competing with Williamson County either on the amount of property taxes and other taxes they take in and then spend. So we're right in the middle on a lot of metrics. If you look us up on just about anything, you'll find Humphreys County, Hickman County, Houston County below us in debt per capita, in property taxes per capita, spending per capita. But then you'll find us right there with Cheatham and below Montgomery and Williamson usually on a spend basis and revenue basis.
We are pretty unique, honestly. When I've looked at some data like that and tried to compare us to a county around us, there's really not a great comparison.
Yeah.
I think maybe Robertson, was usually the closest one that I can find, because Cheatham's a little bit smaller than us, and I think maybe Robertson has a little bit more, but there's not really a good comparison. We're a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah. Mayor Ryle has 3 counties he looks at as good comparisons when he needs from a population standpoint or size or proximity to a major metro area. So I know Jefferson County in East Tennessee is one he looks at.
Okay.
And there's 2 others. I'm not sure which those are, but those are very similar demographics and population.
I do remember him mentioning that county, and it's kind of like right outside of Knoxville. So
I think right outside Knoxville.
Kind of like we're right outside of Nashville, so that might be the best comparison in some ways. But yeah, no, that's some really good points that you've made there. Is there any others? Any other things that they said at that meeting? I unfortunately didn't get a chance to go to that meeting because I'm a full-time teacher, as many people know. Some people don't know, but I love my job. I'm a 9th grade world history teacher, and I enjoy it to death. But they did this meeting during the school day, so I didn't get a chance to go.
I know. I know it was hard on folks to make it, and even Reggie Weaver, another candidate, had a hard time getting there on time because he's a school bus driver.
Yeah.
So he was able to pop on stage right before it started and participate. But my wife's a school teacher like you are. She's been that's her whole professional career has been spent with Dixon County schools. And so have a big heart for the school system and school teachers out there.
Yeah.
Other topics that came up at the forum, growth was obviously the main one, but, different aspects of growth. How do you control it? How do you build infrastructure to support it? Those aspects. And so my answer was, with growth, there's from a county standpoint, the one thing you can do is your water authority of Dixon, where they expand into, where's their future areas that they're trying to add sewer and water, because that's honestly where development's going to happen. And so then there's also, at the same time, there's a county growth plan that we're completing actually this year. So it's done every so many years, maybe every 5 years or so, maybe every 10, I can't remember. But Mayor Ryle is working with the other mayors of the municipalities in Dixon. There's 6 municipalities. And Mayor Ryle works with them basically to define where we want to see county growth, whether it's commercial, residential, or industrial. And so usually you want to find that along your major highway corridors. You want to find that on the boundaries of your municipalities where you already have infrastructure. You don't want to identify growth out in a part of the county that doesn't have, adequate road access, adequate schools, adequate infrastructure like water and sewer. So it makes sense that we're trying to infill our growth, right? You want to have, major urban density built up within Dixon. It's just more efficient on your system from a tax standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint. You want to have denser urban areas as opposed to sprawling, kind of ex-urban areas. And one other topic that came up around that was we have in Dixon, we've had different things in the past. I brought this up with, maybe what things your county could have done better over the last 10 years that have come up topically. And so part of growth is rezoning. So the rezoning, planning and zoning board, that's the other kind of gatekeeper control that you can have over growth. And that's a tough job they have. So we have a planning and zoning department, and Curtis Hayes is the department head of that. And then they have plan reviewers. So you have developers come in, they have to submit site plans, have to, go pull permits. And so they have to kind of take a first step in making sure the site plans turned in and rezoning requests meet our regulations and ordinances. And then they take that and submit it to their planning and zoning board. So they meet once a month. The planning commission, you'll see on YouTube, on Dixon County's YouTube page, you can watch their videos. And so they have plans come in. I'm sure every day they've got new plans coming in. So they've got a tough job, and we got to make sure we staff them and give them the tools to appropriately review all these in a timely manner. And the planning commission basically reviews and votes yes or no on whether they want to approve the rezoning application. And then all they do is make a recommendation. So they pass the recommendation onto the county commission, and the commission ultimately votes on each rezoning application, which is going to be a busier and busier job. If you've watched meetings in the past few years or participated in the meetings, you'll see it come up every meeting. There's rezoning. So we want to be careful with that. There's one situation that was a sticky situation last year that came up with a site that was out down Yellow Creek Road in Edgewood community. And so it was a former sawmill, and which fits an Ag 1 zoning. There's certain applications, within each zoning that your business can operate in. And so sawmill was a fit, and it was a sawmill forever. And then the property got sold. It turned into sort of a lumber manufacturing. I think maybe they did pallet manufacturing, and they did some kind of wood siding, veneer siding. And then that company changed to more of they're called Tennessee Steel Buildings, and they make carports, metal carports and garages. And so the zoning use did not fit anymore. Ag 1 and kind of a metal manufacturing did not make sense. And so the county discovered this and gave them a non-compliance order. And so basically had to decide, okay, you can stay Ag 1, and this business is in non-compliance, so you're gonna have to close the business with 80 something to 90 employees. Or you can go through this process. This is the choice they gave the company. Or you can go through a rezoning process to meet commercial, and then you're going to have to, of course, have building permits approved. You're going to have site plans. You're going to do road studies and road upgrades. If the study shows that your truck traffic is going to overwhelm Edgewood Road and Yellow Creek Road, you're going to have to upgrade the roads. So it's a big undertaking. That's ultimately what the commission decided to do, was to rezone that. And of course, there was people that came up for public comment on both sides of the issue, and it's a really tough issue. And some of the commissioners I've talked to said it was the hardest vote they've done since they've been a commissioner. And so those are tough situations, and hopefully there's not very many of those that come up, as far as how that one transpired. But obviously, if you've been in Dixon for the last 10 to 15 years, you've seen other things happen, such as the fuel depot. That was a huge issue that came up with people that lived around that area. And unfortunately, the property was zoned industrial just due to its proximity to 840, and that did make sense back then, but obviously that's a desirable area now, not only for its proximity to 840 for residential and access to the interstate for, commuting. So we've had a lot of residential growth around there. And so that's, one reason why it got a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
Very tough situations. And these will not be the only ones. There will be more that will come up that we're not even aware of right now. Another one that came up, that from the water authority standpoint was wastewater treatment plant in Bon Aqua. And so that was a issue that they applied for a permit, I think, in 2022 with TDEC. So the Water Authority was finding themselves at capacity with their wastewater treatment in the county, and we have one treatment facility in Fairview. And so they had to start looking, where are we going to, you can't just dump, and do wastewater treatment anywhere you want, right? So there's a environmental process, a TDEC, Tennessee Department of Environmental and Conservation, and you've got to meet their regulations. And so they had identified an area in Bon Aqua that was underserved by sewer that they thought, well, how about we do a treatment plant here? They were going to do one of the more advanced treatment plants, and they had to route the water, though, and dump it down Highway 7 into Lick Creek, which is about 9 miles from where they were actually going to have the treatment facility. So there was a lot of pumping and piping taking place. And TDEC, reviewed and worked with them about the application process. There was a lot of residents around the area in Bon Aqua that felt like they weren't informed early enough on the issue, and that was one of the main problems, was they just weren't aware that the Water Authority was wanting to expand in their area, or thought they needed it, honestly. Like I said earlier, Hickman County is an area that doesn't necessarily want a lot of growth, and the growth, and like I said, water and sewer availability will spur growth. And so they didn't feel like they needed it, and they didn't feel like they were really going to be the main beneficiaries of it. The main beneficiaries would probably be Fairview and Dixon County, southern Dixon County, as far as where we're going to route sewer and water from to this plant. So TDEC actually sided with them, with the residents of Hickman County and the people that were against the project. So ultimately, the project did not get approved. It went through several court battles, but the Water Authority had to kind of reanalyze where they needed to grow their treatment facilities. And so they're at capacity in White Bluff. They're at capacity, like I said, in the Fairview plant. So they've expanded Jones Creek. And, one option, I guess, is still available is, and the TDEC recommended this option, is to pump all the way from Jones Creek to the Cumberland River, which the Cumberland River can handle any amount of sewer treatment we would ever give it. And that's the problem with Lick Creek and other creeks like that, is a lot of them are classified as exceptional Tennessee water. And there's huge stringent environmental constraints on dumping water into that and how well you have to treat it. So the Cumberland, not as much. It's got so much volume. It's a dilution issue. So just as long as if you're pumping out 12 million gallons a day, the Cumberland can handle it. A little stream that only has 8 million gallons of water going through it on a regular day, probably not going to be able to handle it. So that's ultimately what TDEC suggested.
Absolutely. Well, and thank you for that. You walked us right through some of the biggest stories that have been going on in this area for the past couple of years, and I have the chance to sort of the thing that I do for the Dixon Times. We have a website, DixonTimes.com. I'll take this opportunity to sort of push that a little bit, because if you're listening to the things that Ben is telling us here, he's given us a great summary over some of the biggest issues that have faced the county over the past couple of years, and they all tie into growth somehow, right? They all have some sort of some tie into growth and how growth is creating different issues. And I try to watch the county commission meetings every month and try to write stories based on what I see in those meetings, and then we post those online. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, wow, I didn't know some of those things that Ben was just telling us, man, it's hard to keep up with everything, isn't it? And so that's one reason why I do what I do, is I try to bring that information to the public as much as we can. And so this year, I think I've already published somewhere around 70 stories just in the past 3 months. That just tells you how much is going on here in Dixon County, and I'm struggling to try to keep up. So you make sure you use DixonTimes.com as a resource to help you keep up with these things. But I do really appreciate you giving us a very detailed summary of some of those things that people may not be aware of, because those are just a few of the issues that we're going to face. And like you said, there's going to be more.
There will be more.
And so was there anything else that you wanted to mention that was brought up at that meeting while we're still here in this segment?
Yeah, so one question or topic that didn't even get asked in the 36 questions that we were given a list of was school systems. And I thought that was surprising. And I know it's a chamber event, so a lot of people there are running small businesses and other businesses in Dixon. And so maybe school system isn't front of mind for them, but it's something I'm certainly passionate about. And the county serves a massive role in, right? So the school system is the county's largest employer. I think it's got about 1,200 total staff. It's obviously, being the largest employer, it's also going to be the largest expense item. So all of our county sales tax collected, except for maybe a small fraction, go to the school system. County property taxes so our property tax rate right now is about $1.69, and I think 50 cents of that goes to the school system. So 50 cents out of the $1.69, and so they are a huge funding item for the county every year, and they have to work together very well in order to run the schools responsibly and run them well. And one thing they're looking for now is to do a bunch of facility upgrades that honestly have been needed for a long time. And they've got the board and direction, and they've got the plan in place to do these upgrades. And you've seen some of them. They've gotten started in the last 2 years with major facility upgrades at the Dixon County High School with the new track and football field and stadium upgrades. And then there's some that are taking place that you're not even aware of, that aren't as visible. And then there's a new CTE, Career and Technology building at Creekwood High School that's just about to open, or may have just opened actually in the last few weeks. So they've done some really massive and needed projects, and there's still more to go from just a building maintenance standpoint. And so they've got some requests out there to borrow money from the county and spend some of their own reserve fund, $17 million of their own reserve fund, to fix a lot of roof issues, fix some building expansion issues. Charlotte Middle School's been in need of upgrades for a long time, and long overdue there. So they're wanting to upgrade that facility, add some classrooms, and just make sure we're providing our students, with a great learning environment.
Well, that has been something that's come up a lot at the meetings, especially the past couple.
Yeah.
They're trying to make a long-term plan, I guess you could say, and working with county commission and school board. I mean, that's something that comes into it, right? The mayor is one piece of that, and then you've got the county commission, but then you've got the school board that has to work with the county commission, mm-hmm. and I guess the mayor's kind of playing referee almost a little bit, kind of giving his advice on things. And then you've got the school superintendent. So there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to our schools, and a lot of different people who have input. So
it's very challenging. And so in my professional career, I worked as a energy engineer, mechanical engineer, and project manager. And one of the main clients we had was school systems. And so a lot of my projects were involved doing multi-million-dollar projects, managing. I would manage the project development early on. So I would develop cost, budgeting, and estimates for the project to sell to the school system and say, hey, we can. And a lot of my projects were self-funded by energy savings and other utility savings. So we would come to the school systems with plans to basically, let's upgrade lighting, let's upgrade HVAC that you need so desperately at these buildings that are, you've got equipment that's 25, 30 years old. Let's upgrade, water fixtures. Let's upgrade your control systems, and maybe even touch on your building envelope, like your windows and roofs. And we would show to them that, if we can do this right, we can pay for this, save $200,000, $300,000 a year in utility savings for a big school district. And this would pay down the debt that would be required to do these projects. So it was almost budget neutral for schools, and that they loved it, because they usually, like Justin mentioned, it's a very complicated process to get debt approved. And so if you could show that you have a way to pay for this debt, with a very good fiduciary responsibility to your taxpayers, it usually went over well with school boards and county commissions. So I would have to go present a lot of times and spend many late nights sweating it out at commission meetings and school board meetings, hoping they would approve my projects. And so that's where really got a taste of how governments operate, how the school board operates with the county, and how things can swing on a dime. So it's really important that you get your information out there and stay on top of it and make sure you're educating all the decision makers that are on these boards.
Yeah, like you said, there's a lot of people, a lot of different people involved, and I was watching the last county commission meeting. I usually, right now with my kids, and you can identify with this, kids playing so many sports, it's hard for me to show up in person, and I do get criticized a lot of times for that. It's like, well, you weren't there. It's like, I know, but I did listen to the entire YouTube meeting, and so it was like I was there. I just had to listen to it, at 12 o'clock at night, when we got back from the ball games. But I do try to listen to as many of them as I can, and I did notice in this last meeting, some of the county commission members, it's their job to vote on it, but I did hear a couple times, hey, Mr. Mayor, what do you think? What is your office, researched? What have you guys figured out? So even though, the county commission is the one that ultimately votes on it, it's the mayor who sort of like is the captain of the ship, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And so, like I mentioned, counties can be set up in a multitude of ways, and we're not locked into the way we necessarily have it right now. It can change over time. Hickman County's gone down from 21 commissioners down to 14 in the last, 10 or 15 years. And like I said, you can elect your mayor as your chairman of your commission, or you can elect another commissioner as the chairman. If another commissioner is the chairman, the county mayor is there to advise, but he's more going to execute, the wishes of the commission and how they vote. So there's different ways to do it, different ways to set up, county government. And the way we've done it, is working well for us now with Mayor Ryle. He's done a great job in leading our county out of a really bad situation. That's one thing we haven't touched on, but just, through his 16 years in office, the county was in really bad shape in 2008, 9, and 10. Yeah. And so he had to come in and really make some tough decisions financially, just to get us where we could make, payroll, and we could make our debt obligations. And we are in a great place right now, and that's one thing I don't think he has gotten enough credit for. I certainly give him all the credit in the world, because we're an envious county now. If you look around, like I said earlier, there's some other counties that prefer low debt, but there's other counties that aren't managing so well, and their revenues are dropping, and we are not in that situation. So we're in a great spot to really think about, I think, ways we can improve the county and not just, continue the status quo, and look for projects that would satisfy, make people, a lot of taxpayers really appreciate. You look at the city of Dixon, they made some bold decisions lately with upgrading Hensley Park and the splash pad and all the walkways they've added. And so those are kind of features that you start looking for in a county that's in a good financial spot. You start thinking about, okay, well, if we can collectively, be smart about it and really watch the budget. But, the way they've upgraded they're upgrading Buckner Park right now. I want the county to be more involved with those cities in that process. That was actually sort of tied into one of the questions that did not get asked but was on our list, was would you support the YMCA, or how would you support the new YMCA project that they're building at Hensley Park? And I think the reason for that question was the county does not have a Parks and Recreation department. I don't think we need one right now. And maybe later down the road, you could see that if the growth in the county, the population gets to that point, you might think about having some county parks. But really, I think a role the county could take on is supporting the cities, supporting Charlotte, White Bluff, Dixon, and their park systems. Anything that financially, if you can contribute. I think we do contribute a little bit to the senior center down here across from Buckner. So there's a little bit of a financial commitment we do annually as a county to them. But outside of that, I will make a commitment right now as county mayor to find any way we can to pull some money together from the budget for all these cities and spread it around to all the cities to help them keep their parks running, improve them if they want to add some fields, improve Buckner Park soccer fields, improve the baseball complex, improve Charlotte and White Bluff and Burns, and help them have the money they need to keep those parks running great.
Absolutely. I think you bring up a lot of good points there. We do need to. I can see, and I'll bring this up from a personal standpoint. I got two boys playing baseball. We don't have enough baseball fields. As many baseball fields as we have, we still don't have enough. And we're only growing. So I think it is going to become more vital that we start to think about those things, for
Absolutely.
our kids and even the next generation.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Well, let's go ahead and take a break. We've gone pretty long on this one. I'll come back, though, and ask you if we've got anything else that we need to talk about. You're listening to Ben Shepard, who's running for Dickson County Mayor. We appreciate Ben coming in here with us this morning. Let's take a quick break, though, and we'll come back and we'll do the third segment. And we'll see if there's anything that we haven't talked to Ben about that he wants to bring up. And another thing I like to do in the third segment is make sure that we give out a lot of contact information so that you guys can follow up with Ben to ask him any follow-up questions. We've gone over a lot of things today, and you guys might have some questions you want to ask Ben, so I'll give him that opportunity before we close out here. And we do appreciate you listening this morning. Let's take a quick break. You're listening to the Saturday Morning Show, Dickson County Radio. We'll be right back. All right, we're back here on Dickson County Radio. You're listening to the Saturday Morning Show, the show that's all about Dickson County, and we're doing our best to bring you local politics here on Saturday morning and try to get you in touch with as many different candidates as we can here in Dickson County. And we've got a great conversation taking place this morning between myself and Mr. Ben Shepard, who's running for county mayor. And Ben, we went over a bunch of stuff in that last segment. We talked about the recent county commission, the recent Dickson Chamber event. Sorry. We talked about the county commission too. We talked about a lot of different things, but we talked about the recent chamber event that was held where all of the county mayor candidates were invited, and a lot of interesting questions were asked there. I think you said 36 different questions, and even some that came up maybe that weren't on that list. But I appreciate you kind of going over it with some of those key points, and I'm glad we could give you the opportunity to hear to go kind of long form on it and kind of explain yourself in detail on some of those, because I know you guys were kind of limited for time at that event. But was there anything else that we didn't hit on that you wanted to maybe mention?
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, I could talk about this with you all morning, and I love it. And
well, go ahead and tell us another one that you want to talk about.
So,
I love it too.
Well, two things. And I might touch on this later too, but this election cycle is going to be a big one, but the way the county's running the elections this year is different for county elected office, right? And so one thing that's I've got a lot of questions about is, you're running as an independent. We normally, in the past, Dickson, this is the first time Dickson's had a primary for a county office. And so it was just basically that it's a decision that came down from the state to the local parties, and they could vote on whether they wanted to hold a primary or not. So I decided, first of all, run, and then second of all, I'm going to run as an independent, because I don't really think that the county, needs to be partisan at this, juncture for what the role is for county mayor and county commissioners. We're trying to keep our community safe, build a good school system, which attracts, high quality people. And when you have, safe community and good schools, that's how you get good people to move into your county.
Yeah.
We want to pick up trash, and we want to pave roads, and we want to be there for disaster response. Those are kind of the functions of county government at a high level. And I don't see any need, to make it partisan. So I decided to run as an independent because of that, and just kind of harken back to how our elections, in the county were run in prior election cycles.
Yeah, and that's been something that's come up quite a bit, because it's a little bit confusing to folks as far as the election timeline this year. It's
Right.
a little bit different. We've got early voting that actually takes place in April for the primary that takes place on May the 5th. Now, that primary is just for the Republican Party, because the Democratic Party did not call a primary. So it's just for Republican candidates, and so we'll go through the process that if you choose to vote in that election, and then whoever wins that primary will go on to the August general election, where all the independent candidates will be. Is that correct?
That's correct.
It's a little bit confusing because, like you said, we've not done that in the past. And we'll also have a follow-up election, I believe, in November. So even though the primary is our county primary is in May, it would also, I guess, be accurate to say that the August election is somewhat of a primary too for like state representative candidates and the governor, and so that's where I think the real confusion comes in, because we have two primaries, but the second primary is a general for some offices, and then we'll follow that up with another general in November. So I hope I'm not confusing everybody, but there are actually 3 election dates this year: May, August, November, and you'll be on the August one. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So I'll be on the August 6th ballot. Election day is August 6th. And there's early voting for that in mid-July, July 17th through August 1st. They'll have early voting. So avoid the lines, go to early voting. It'll help motivate me to get out there and get more people to go out to vote as I see early voting numbers come in. So I really encourage to get out there and early vote. And you can it's more available as far as just breaking away from work, and if you get sick on election day or something, you don't want to wait and the car breaks down. So I encourage you, look at the calendar, get on Dixon County's election page and look for dates and polling stations and where you can go vote. And if you don't find the answer there, reach out to me, and I will let you know.
And get registered if you're not registered. There's been a lot of talk here lately with a lot of different things in the news is registering to vote, and of course you have to be registered. If you move or anything like that, you've got to make those changes. So maybe check that status. There are ways to do that, and make sure that you get involved here locally. And that's another function of this show, I hope, is that it encourages more people to go out and vote because they're hearing more about the candidates and they're getting more information. And really, that's the whole thing that we're trying to do here is really just bring more information, to the voters here. Any other key issues of your campaign that we haven't brought up yet, Ben? Anything else you want to talk about? Yeah.
So one other thing at the forum I mentioned, and I expanded on this on my Facebook page with a recent post on Thursday, is there's not a whole lot of things to really distinguish yourself on in the county. As far as, everybody wants low taxes. And if you, like I said earlier, if you look at our taxes, they're right in the middle of us and surrounding counties. So, when you say keep taxes low, that's basically saying, the state gives us a certified tax rate, which basically is, right now it's $1.69. So the state says at $1.69 with your assessed property values, that's the amount of dollars tax rate you need to meet the same amount of revenue you brought in last year with your property taxes. So that changes year to year. Some years you might see it, go up and down and move around, but overall, the state's just recommending a number based on the audit of our assessor's office on what that rate needs to be to meet the same property tax revenue from the previous year. So to keep taxes low, you could go below the certified rate or above it, I guess. But you would, of course, your revenue would change proportionally. So it's just about doing projects that are smart, that make sense fiscally. So, one thing I've got a passion for is outdoor activities. I've looked at and talked with other mayors, Mayor Ryle, Mayor Weiss, and some other people in Dixon about a greenway system. It's been a discussion a long time. There's been some bold ideas to connect the Bibb Center in White Bluff with a greenway system that would go all the way to Buckner Park, which is just incredible if we can pull that off. And I really will make that an emphasis to do that if elected. That system, you would think through it and that's a lot of property to purchase and a lot of easements to get. And it's a long process, but we actually have a lot of available easements at our disposal that are utility easements. So there's water and gas pipeline that has land available that cuts through near Jones Creek, around the backside of if you've been to the bike trails in Montgomery Bell Park, that area has got a lot of utility easements, electrical, gas, and water. And we can use that land and have a surface paved greenway trail, again, coming from White Bluff all the way to Buckner. And so that's a huge, ambitious undertaking that you starting to see in the counties such as Nashville, they've got a huge greenway network. Williamson County's got a great greenway network. Maury County has some greenways that they are starting to build out. So these are things that are great for people with strollers, those that can't walk the trails in Montgomery Bell, don't necessarily want to deal with the geese at Luther Lake maybe. So those are one of my bold ideas, as well as just building out availability to water access. I think that's a huge one. I love getting on every summer. I boat down the Harpeth or Turnbull multiple times, and I think adding kayak and canoe access to the Piney, to Turnbull, to the Harpeth would be a great thing. Another thing I talked about and expanded on in my Facebook post, excuse me while I get a drink of water.
Well, and thank you so much for being willing to take the time here this morning, because when you first got here, I said, Ben, I want to talk to you about everything, and you're like, that's great, I'll go over as much as you want. And so I appreciate you being so thorough this morning.
Yes. Another thing I brought up was the sanitation fee, and the Dixon County residents, we pay a sanitation fee to support our sanitation budget. And approximately $2.7 million is collected from that fee every year. That goes towards our sanitation budget. That's about, I think, $5.5 million right now. So a little around half the sanitation budget, the landfill, the service centers, or the convenience centers that you see around the county, which we've expanded and upgraded over the last few years. Mayor Ryle's done a great job upgrading Charlotte's and Burns' convenience centers, and we've purchased more property, and have plans to hopefully upgrade White Bluff's convenience center in the near future. So those were very expensive projects, but they're a huge service to county residents to take our trash to. I'm in the county, so I go to it multiple times a week, and that's, like I said, that's part of what the sanitation fee goes to support. There's different ways, though, to do the sanitation fee, and a lot of people have some confusion about the messaging and what the genesis and what the initiation of the fee really was. So it just happened to line up back in 2010 with the landfill lawsuit that the county was experiencing. So we had a lawsuit that came out. We had some TCE, was a chemical that was leaking out of the landfill and was getting in well water systems around the landfill. And so property owners that lived around that area started experiencing health issues, and did some research, and I think had the EPA come in and others and started testing the water and found this chemical in their well water. And so they brought a lawsuit, and the county and the city of Dixon, they settled with the plaintiffs, and the lawsuit is what a lot of people think the sanitation fee was brought about to pay off. Yeah. And I thought that for the longest time too. And Mayor Ryle has explained to me personally, and also in commission meetings recently, that is not what the reason for it was. And it was just really a coincidence of different things that happened to Dixon at the time. So back before Mayor Ryle, we expanded our county jail and had a massive upgraded county jail, which is very expensive. County jails can run, $1,100 to $1,200 a square foot to build, and so that project was expensive to build, but also expensive to staff.
Yes.
And so we were, when Mayor Ryle got in office, he found that we were not in a position to make the note payment on the jail project. So we had to come up with a new revenue source so that we could. Maybe we take the sanitation department and make it an enterprise fund on its own, and make it operate sort of on its own, like the highway department does. And then also, and take that money that was left over that used to support the sanitation and start putting it towards our jail debt payment. So we had to do, a lot of work and create this new fee. There was 3 options he gave the commission back then. He said we can do a wheel tax increase, we can raise property taxes, or we can do a sanitation fee, which is not unique. Montgomery County does one. Hickman County does one where they mail out, it's $90 a year for residential to all property owners, and then I think it's maybe double that for if you're a business property. So if you're a commercial zoned area, so they mail out that fee, basically a flat fee to all property owners in the county. We do the sanitation fee through electric customers. So if you're an electric customer, your primary meter on your property, you're getting a $10 fee per month, so $120 a year. We pay the electric department to process that and put that in our billing statements and collect the money from it, send that money over to the county. And so we pay them around, I've heard, roughly $450,000 a year to do that. And the electric department is, I think they've mentioned recently that they don't necessarily want to continue to do that. So the county doesn't have that in-house. We don't have that, staffing in-house to do that processing. So I think it makes more sense to, it's a lot of people, think the bill is from the lawsuit, the sanitation fees from the lawsuit. And so I thought, well, it's a good opportunity just to clean slate. Let's just start over, get rid of it, and just support it with other revenue sources. We can maybe take a little bit of sales tax, a little bit of, tiny percent of property tax increase. And this would only impact just, households that really, probably above a $600,000 to $700,000 assessment. You would see an increase. If you were below that, you would actually pay less than $120 a year in your increased property taxes. So most people would come out paying less than what they're paying for the fee. So this is what I found is, sort of a way to spread out the revenue and taxes and compensate for just getting rid of the bill altogether. Like, I get it in my statements every month. Like I said, I used to wonder what it was for, and I just think it's, something we could blend in and nobody would notice if we got rid of it and just kind of smartly appropriated the money from other revenue sources.
Well, I appreciate that explanation, because I think that's probably the most misunderstood thing about Dickson County government, I would have to say. And it comes up quite a bit, and to Mayor Ryle's credit, he has been very consistent and very open about it. If you go to any meeting that he's been a part of the past few years, he has been very willing to explain that very thoroughly, but it's still misunderstood. It's just one of those things where I think we'll always be confused about it for whatever reason.
Because regardless of how well he does, just you're never going to get all 49,000 people in Dixon to hear that message. And so there'll always be some confusion about it. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and thank you for being so thorough with all of your answers this morning. I appreciate you coming in. And, I had a lot of questions. I didn't get to go to that meeting, and I was really curious about some of the stuff. And some people had reached out to me and who had gone to the meeting and said, man, it was really good. The chamber meeting, it was asked a lot of questions. Just wish maybe the candidates had a little more time to talk. And so, that's why we're here. We've had the opportunity now to interview everybody that's running for county mayor other than Mr. Weaver, who I have interviewed before because he has run for mayor in the past, and he's agreed to come on. So anybody who's wondering about that, it's just a scheduling thing with me and Reggie. I love Reggie. He's a great man. And we're going to get him on here very soon. And but everybody's been pretty consistent who's come on, who's running for mayor, and everybody's thought that, Bob's done a pretty good job. And so we do want to give him his credit. And you mentioned that earlier. Been pretty consistent. So I guess whoever takes over is going to have some big shoes to fill, but we do appreciate you coming in and kind of going over some of your key visions for Dickson County here. Now, I guess we're getting right here to the end. I do want to ask you about your contact information and some other things like that, but is there anything else you wanted to mention that you've got going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So, harking back, my dad, I don't know if I've mentioned the years he was in state office. He ran for, I mentioned the state legislature for the first time in 2000. And so he was our state rep for the 69th district for 16 years. And one thing I just want to bring up again, this particular election, having, you can pick your political party, and I'm running as independent, but I just want to run like my dad would run. If you remember him or ever talk to him, I've got people that come up to me every day that say, hey, I'm a Republican, but I voted for your dad every time. And that really means a lot to me, because that's how he wanted to be. He wanted to reach across the aisle, and he did. He worked across the aisle a lot in the state. And I just want that, I want that same outreach with me, and I strive every day. I've got friends on all sides of political aisles and beliefs, from Republican to Democrat to Tea Party to Libertarian, and I'm friends with so many different types of people, and I don't think that really has much to do with running for county mayor. I definitely see it on the state level and federal level, and totally understand the political sides of those, but I just hope you look at the candidates, evaluate us evenly, and if you like my vision and like my role I'm in as just a father of 3 kids in the school system, a younger guy that's got great vision and energy to make some, fun changes in the county, add some features that we don't have right now, but keep it, fiscally responsible, then I'm your candidate. And, I think, Justin, thank you today for giving me this platform. This has been tremendous. Some people may read my Facebook content or talk to me in public, but hopefully I can share this YouTube link and people can find it that way and listen.
Well, and this is a full circle moment for me, if you don't mind. I want to tell a quick story because there will be a lot of people listening to the show today that are listening because you're on, and they may not normally listen. But I tend to tell stories about the past on here from time to time, and a story that I remember this morning from 2000, and I told you this when you first came in, but I want to share it with everybody else. I was, from a very early age, I wanted to be on the radio, and I was inspired by it because I loved baseball, and there was an announcer named Jack Buck who announced for the St. Louis Cardinals when I was growing up. And even here in Dixon, Tennessee, as a kid, the power of AM radio, you could tune in to 1120 AM KMOX at night whenever the sun went down, and you could pick it up on an old AM radio station. And my dad was a huge Cardinals fan. He's from St. Louis. My mom's from here in Tennessee. And I wanted to be a radio guy from a real early age. I was inspired by that. And I knew we had a local radio station here, WDKN, and I wanted to work for WDKN when I was young. And I found out that the people who owned the radio station had an affiliation with the church I was at. So I started doing some research, and I started begging for a job. And when I was 15, they told me, Justin, you can't work legally till you turn 16. And I said, okay. I turned 16 in October 1999. That was a couple months later. And they said, call us when you turn 16. So I did. Went right down to the radio station when I turned 16, and I said, I want to get a job here. And they were so cool, man. They were like, okay, we'll give you a job. You have to work at 5 o'clock in the morning on Saturdays. And you come in, you work from 5 to noon, and you'll open the door and you'll hit the microphone buttons for Warren Medley. And anybody who's from Dixon knows who Warren Medley is. If you've been around here for a while, he's in the Radio Hall of Fame. He worked down at WDKN from, I think, the day they opened in 1955. And so I got to work with him, and I was just the button pusher. Okay, Warren was the star, and he would have World War II veterans in, but whenever it was election season, he would have candidates in. And it was the 2000 cycle, and I had been working at the radio station for a couple of months, and I was just itching to get on the microphone, Ben. I wanted on the microphone so bad I wanted to talk, okay? And I said, Warren, when we have some of these guys come in, for the election, I want to ask them a question. And he was like, I don't know, Justin. I don't know if they want to, do that or, And so we would kind of float it to a couple different candidates, and I kept getting turned down. David Shepard came in one morning, and David come in, and David was just so nice to me, man. He was just so kind, and I run it by Warren that morning, and I think he knew kind of David's personality, so he knew that David would probably be cool with it. And so they put up a little microphone, and I kind of went over and asked a little question to David, and it was the first time I ever got to talk live on the radio. First question I ever got to interview anybody, and I did not have any idea, 27 years later, that I would still be kind of doing this. Kind of thought, I hoped so, but, never knew back then that, 26 years later, I would be interviewing David's son, and we would be doing it in a whole new way than we did it back then on AM radio, right?
Absolutely.
In a whole new way. But it's kind of a full circle moment for me, and so I just wanted to mention that to everybody. This has been real cool. I've really enjoyed you coming in. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. We both have families. We're both busy, and you taking the time to come in for a couple hours this morning and let me pick your brain and let me ask you some questions has been a lot of fun. And so I appreciate that, Ben.
Yeah, I told Justin before the show, we were talking. I got back. We had a soccer game. I coached Burns Middle School soccer team and been doing that the last 3 years. And So we had a game last night at Harpeth, and we did win. It was awesome. We made a comeback. We were down 1-0 at half and made some adjustments, and the boys responded great and ended up getting a victory 2-1. So wanted to watch the March Madness last night, but like Justin said, we're both busy people, so we had to get in here early this morning and get this recorded. And just been an awesome conversation with you. I've got a kickoff party that's going to be happening in mid-April.
Yeah.
So being an independent, not in the primary, that's why you're not seeing a lot of my signs out yet. You're seeing a lot of the primary candidate signs right now. And so, I've got, the next 5 months to really hit it hard. And so if you want to sign, we're starting to produce them now. If you want to support me in any other way, please reach out to, I've got an email, Shep4Dixon. That's the number 4, so SHEP4Dixon @gmail.com. And I've got a Facebook page that's getting more and more popular. Ben Shepard for Dixon County Mayor. So go there. You can message me through there if you want to help with my campaign, or you just want to sign, or even some bumper stickers we'll have hopefully produced soon.
Awesome. Well, yeah, you're going over the contact information, any upcoming events. That's usually what I close out with. I think you hit it all, man. So thank you so much.
Yeah, look for the details. Like I said, the kickoff party we're looking at probably Sunday, April 11th or 12th, or the Sunday, April 19th. And we've got a couple locations identified that have availability. And so look for details on my Facebook page. Come on by, get some free food. And I would encourage anybody out there that likes what they hear from me today to, consider me for your vote in August. And I'd love to be your next county mayor.
Well, thank you so much. And I just want to send a quick shout out to Jeremy Kleckler. We got your question asked. And Sammy Gibbs. Good old Sammy Gibbs has been waiting on this interview for a while. So appreciate everybody who listens, and appreciate you, Ben, for coming in. Like I always say when I close out these shows, I do the best that I can to provide the format. I have the equipment. I'll provide a location. But this show is not anything if the candidates won't agree to come in and talk to me. And so I appreciate you so much being willing to do it, taking the time out of your schedule, coming down here and giving me an opportunity to talk to you and get that information out to the people. Like I said, it doesn't work if you guys don't agree to do it. So thank you so much for being willing to talk to me. And, as we get a little closer, we got a long way to go. So if we get a little closer to the campaign, I'd love to have you come back. And maybe next time we can set up some cameras. And people always say, I wish you'd do the video interviews. And I said, well, the first one I always do is more of introductory and more of an audio thing, but we can always do video, so maybe we can do another one down the road.
I'm down if you're down.
Let's do it. All right. Well, everybody, thank you for listening this morning. We appreciate you. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Support local media. We appreciate you. Stay tuned to the radio station the rest of the day. We got great music for you. I've sort of expanded the format, so it's not just 80s right now. We tried that for about a month or two, and we opened it up. There's some 90s and even a little 2000s. All kinds of different music on there for you, so be sure to listen to that. And a new thing I'll mention right here as we close out is I had some people last week who contacted me who said, Justin, we would love it if you would do some replays. Like, don't you keep a record of the show? I'm like, yeah, I've got it. So they said, well, could you do some replays on the radio so we could listen to it during the week and not just the new episodes on Saturday? So since this show airs at 10 on Saturday, I decided during the week at 9 o'clock and then at 10 o'clock, we're playing 2 different episodes every day. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. If it's 9 or 10 in the morning and you're thinking, I don't have a whole lot going on, I'd like to listen to the radio. If you tune into Dixon County Radio, we'll have different interviews from the past candidates from this year every day. So, and we'll replay this interview on there. So just another way that you can support local media. We appreciate you listening. Have a good week, Dixon County. We'll see you next week. I will go ahead and say who the next guest is. It's going to be Valerie Littleton, who is a longtime teacher at Dixon County High School. She's running for county commissioner. She will be on the episode next week. We're so excited to have Valerie in here. So make sure that you tune in next week, every Saturday morning, 10 a.m., the Saturday morning show. Have a great weekend, Dixon County.